Hello everybody, my name is Kat and welcome back to my channel where we talk about all things horror. And today we are talking about Stream. Now, if you don't know what Stream is, this is a film that is done by Fuzz on the Lens Productions. This is the team behind the Terrifier films, right? Terrifier 1 and 2. And I believe this might be their first film that they've done outside of the Terrifier series. But just like those films, keeping it very indie, they raised the production funds themselves. At the time of this recording, this film has a limited theatrical release. I was able to catch a screening of this during its limited run back in August, and by the time I'm posting this video, it might already be out on streaming. What this film is about is essentially you have this family who are on vacation together and end up staying the night at this hotel, and then what they discover is that this hotel has been infiltrated by this bizarre group of criminals who essentially play this game where they see who can kill as many people as possible, with the goal being that whoever kills the final victim will be the winner of the game. And all of this is being live streamed to people around the world who place bets on who they think is going to survive or who they think is going to win. And because the team behind this film is full of a bunch of horror fans, you definitely have a bunch of references to movies. This film feels like a combination of The Shining meets Halloween meets Halloween 2, the original, meets Saw, meets Hostel. Like, it's definitely pulling from all of these iconic properties. And of course you have a lot of cameos from horror icons as well, such as Felissa Rose, Tony Todd, Dee Wallace, Danielle Harris, and yes, even Tim Curry, which last time I looked, Tim Curry has like top billing on this film. And I'll just say right now, like, I don't think he's in it for like 99.9999% of this movie. That like 1%, like, that's what he's in. And that's how a lot of the cameos in this film feel. Do I think Terrifier fans will like this movie? Maybe. I'll say up front here, I'm a fairly casual Terrifier fan. I do enjoy the movies. I don't know if you can see, I have my Terrifier VHS back there. I do like them. I enjoy them enough. They're not like my favorite. They definitely serve their purpose as far as just being like these outrageous, very gory horror films. But I do think that the Terrifier films have just like that special like sauce to them, right? They have a special like something. There's just something about them that works that I felt like was lacking in Stream. If you are a fan of the Terrifier films, then you might enjoy this. Although again, if the reason that you like the Terrifier movies is because of all the outrageous gore, while this movie is gory, it doesn't go to the same like deranged places that the Terrifier movies go to. In comparison, it actually feels very tame. And again, this is a film that's very much marketing itself on the cameos. And while yes, they're fun, like I said, the Tony Todds or the Tim Currys, like yes, their scenes come in and their scenes are epic and amazing, and it's great to see them on the big screen again. Tony Todd in particular gives a very epic performance. Like, he's definitely hamming it up in a good way. And even when those cameos happen, some of them tend to feel a little bit out of place. Like, some of them it feels like, okay, you were able to get this person for like a couple hours to come and film with you. There are times where it feels like the film has to be like, okay, stop, we have this cameo coming, look at this horror icon, aren't they amazing, yay. It's weird because these are definitely the most fun parts of the movie, but they also add to the already incredibly long runtime of this film, which is 2 hours long. I can tell you right now, I don't think this film needs to be 2 hours long. This is a movie also, I would say, if you are the kind of person where you like modern films that try to take on a cult film feel, in the sense that they are purposefully not so great acting, not a lot of like story substance, because that's one thing I'll say, like the acting in this movie is atrocious. But again, I think that was on purpose. The acting in this film was giving me the vibes of something like, I don't know, maybe like Troll 2, in the sense that again, it's this very like over the top, very unrealistic, unnatural kind of acting. And this is a film that I think wants to have that cult feel to it. Like, it wants to be a good bad movie in a sense. And it is comedic. It's recognizing a lot of the things in this film feel unnatural. Like, you have the daughter character, who I thought was like the worst actor of all of them. But again, like purposefully so. But most of her scenes is just her like arguing with her family and making faces at them and just kind of being like, So if you're into that vibes, then you might enjoy a film like this. There were two people that were sitting next to me in the theater, and they were definitely having a lot more fun with this movie than I was. They were definitely laughing a lot more than I was. And you could tell they were like hardcore horror fans, so I was kind of having more fun watching them watch the movie than the actual movie itself. So it might work for you on that level if you do like that kind of campy feel. For me, I'm not someone that generally likes when films are trying to have that like cult film feel. Like, I think a lot of pleasure that we get from genuine like cult cinema or good bad movies is in the fact that there was like an intention there to make a good movie, right? It's not like they were coming to set and trying to make something bad. They were trying to make something that they thought was decent, and then it wasn't, but it ended up being unintentionally hilarious and entertaining, like something like a Trolls 2. I feel like when movies like try to do that on purpose, when they're like trying to be purposefully bad, I don't know, it just doesn't work for me. A lot of times I just find it annoying. It feels like this movie has a lot of filler in it. Like I said, it's 2 hours long, and I would say the first 30 minutes you're just kind of hanging out with this family. There's not a lot of gore that's happening, and you get a lot of that like throughout the movie. It feels like you have these really long, drawn out scenes. And for me anyway, I was just sitting there waiting for like the gore to start happening. That first 30 minutes, I was just sitting there like, when are y'all gonna kill somebody? I would say for me, the film didn't really start picking up until, I don't know, a quarter of the way through like the second hour of this movie, because again, they're playing this like game, and it's like there's a lot of setup to the game happening, and some people are getting killed here and there. And then I want to say like within the hour and like 15-minute mark is when the leader, like, he gets on the sound speaker of the hotel and he announces like the games are beginning. And it's like, well, why didn't we get that like earlier? Like, why are the games just like starting now in the third act? These movies don't need to be 2 hours or more. Cut it down. Solid hour and 30 minutes would have made this so much more fun. I feel like you have this very creative team of filmmakers who are getting together, and they're like, look, we're doing all of this like cool stuff. We have all of these actors, we have all of these scenes we come up with, and we have to put all of that into the movie. There's the saying, kill your darlings, for a reason. As far as the gore in the film goes, it's gory. It's not that gory in the beginning. Again, the film has to kind of get going for it to get there. I believe Damien Leone helped with some of the special effects in this movie, so there's definitely some gore effects in here that look really cool. But again, it's just not on that same level as Terrifier. With something like Terrifier 2, and you're getting scenes of people that are just constantly getting stabbed at, and blood is just spraying everywhere, and the entire walls are covered in guts and gore. Like, you don't get that in Stream. There was one kill that I thought was pretty gruesome, where you have two of the killers that they've pinned someone up against a door, and they have like knives, and they're cutting his chest, and they're just playing like tic-tac-toe on his chest with knives. Like, I thought that was pretty gnarly and a visually interesting kill. But the rest of it just seemed kind of like run-of-the-mill. I felt like they really missed out on an opportunity. Stream is a film set in a hotel. They were already making nods to The Shining. I felt like there was an opportunity there to kind of recreate or homage that iconic shot from The Shining where the elevator doors open and there's just like a bunch of blood spilling out everywhere into the lobby. I feel like if anyone was going to do a good, gory homage to that, it would have been this team. I don't know if it's just like they set the bar so high with the Terrifier movies that it's like, unless you meet that level of crazy, it kind of just feels a bit disappointing. I think there's still enough here that the gore fans will find it somewhat enjoyable, but like I said, you got to get through a lot of filler to get to some of these scenes. I think the other thing too, like what makes the Terrifier films work for what they are, those films can get away with being more style over substance. I think because it does take this very like outrageous tone. When you are watching Stream, you are not getting things like somebody hanging upside down and being cut in half. You are not getting weird birthing scenes that it's like, how is any of this happening, right? Like the Terrifier films kind of exist on this other plane of reality almost, where you have this very like fantastical, almost like some sort of grotesque magical realism happening in this universe. Like things that are happening that make no logical sense to be happening, the film just kind of like goes for it, and again makes it as outrageous as possible. And so I think that's like what adds to the charm of those movies, if that's the word you want to use for it. And Stream just doesn't have that. Like, it's not really pushing itself to go any farther than just doing these little, like, you know, nods to horror films or horror franchises that came before it. And I think Terrifier, like, it's a homage, but again, it's really doing its own thing and really creating its own cinematic universe. So I think that's what makes it stand out from a lot of horror films that are trying to recreate that, like, slasher film feel. Also, too, like, Damien Leone, when he's making the Terrifier movies, like, they have a very specific aesthetic to them, right? Both 1 and 2 have very specific feels to them, have very specific tones to them. One thing that I loved about, like, the second Terrifier film is that it did manage to have that kind of 80s vibe to it without trying to be a 1980s movie. So I think there's just, like, more of an intention in those films as well, as far as the visual components of it and really creating a certain feel and atmosphere. Whereas Stream, like, it just felt kind of generic. There wasn't really anything about it from a visual standpoint that stood out to me. There's a lot of, like, pretty lighting. They do a lot of the, like, kind of neon colored look that I personally enjoy. It doesn't have, like, a feel to it. It doesn't have a texture to it that I feel like the Terrifier films have. Like, most of the scenes take place in the hallways or in the rooms or the lobby, but then later on in the film they go out to, like, the pool area and there's, like, a tiki bar set up, and that to me looked way more visually interesting than just the kind of, like, bland hotel rooms. So I wish they had, like, played with the location a little bit more, make it feel a little bit more cinematic, because I do think the Terrifier films have a cinematic feel to them. I'm sure there's people out there that would disagree with me on that. David Howard Thornton does make an appearance in this movie. He is one of the killers, pretty much just kind of playing Art the Clown without the Art the Clown makeup. So it's like, okay. I mean, he's definitely entertaining to watch on screen. And the looks of the killers here, like, yeah, they're kind of cool, but again, nothing, like, quite as, like, visually iconic as what we get with Art the Clown. I mean, that's really all I have to, like, say about this movie. Again, this is just, like, one of those films where it's definitely trying to be more flashy than give you any kind of substance. So, you know, I could stand here and, like, complain, like, there's no story, there's no theme, like I always do, but I knew going into this that there wasn't going to be, like, anything really substantial as far as story or theme. I do think if they had just trimmed it down to, like, an hour and a half or even an hour and 45 minutes, it would have been a lot more enjoyable. But you might enjoy it a lot more than I did, especially if you're a fan of this team's work. So maybe give it a shot if you're interested. If you're watching it and you're feeling kind of bored by the first, like, 30 minutes, maybe, like, skip ahead to, like, the hour and 15-minute mark, because again, I feel like that's where a lot of the really interesting stuff is happening here and really kind of gets going, especially with a lot of the gore effects. Yeah, you know, as a whole, like, I admire this team. You can tell that they're definitely, like, horror fans, and that's cool. They're, like, the kind of guys that I would love to just, like, grab a beer with and talk horror. And I really admire what they've done in terms of, like, indie film production, raising the funds themselves, distributing the films themselves, going outside of the Hollywood studio system, really paving a way for other indie filmmakers like them. So I really admire them for that and just what they've been able to achieve. I do know they have another film coming out in, I think, January of 2025, so we'll see what they do with that. And of course, we have Terrifier 3 coming up. Have you seen Stream? What did you think of it? What did you like about it? What did you dislike about it? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and I will see you next time. Thank you so much for watching.